Comes out of section 8.1, exponential functions. Realistically, a lot of this part could have also been in the review preview section to this chapter. Sketching y equals 5 to the x. You could go so far as to make yourself a table of values and put in some numbers here, but hopefully you remember that this actually is exponential growth, and you're going to have a graph that looks something like this. As it goes to the right, it gets higher and higher. It goes through the point 0, 1, and that's what y equals 5 to the x looks like. If you try 1 over 5 to the x, what you see is exponential decay or decline. It goes through this point of 0, 1, but the rest of the points would be kind of reversed because it turns out this actually is also a reflection. But knowing the difference between, if I have y equals b to the x, if b is greater than 1, you have exponential growth. And, like the first one that we did, if b is between 0 and 1, you have exponential decay, like the second example that we did. And really we don't look at bases that aren't either greater than 1 or between 0 and 1. So the next thing we would do then is potentially look at, some limits related to these things. We don't start derivatives until the next section. So let's say I said, what's a limit as x approaches negative infinity of b to the x? It depends if we're talking about growth or decay. But in this case, if we're talking about exponential growth, so in other words, if b is greater than 1, then the answer to this limit is, as you put in huge numbers, negative numbers for x, this thing will approach 0. It approaches its horizontal asymptote. The same thing would be true if I would have said the limit as x approaches infinity of b to the x, if we're talking about decay, if we're talking about a base between 0 and 1, then the answer to this limit is 0, because as you can see from the graph above, as you put in higher and higher numbers for x, you're going to get smaller and smaller numbers for that answer. To extend from that, if we're asked to graph y equals 4 plus 5 to the x, really all we're taking is the graph that was up above, moving it up 4 units, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Most importantly, its asymptote now is at y equals 4, instead of what was at y equals 0 before. So we have ourselves an exponential growth function that's been moved up. If we put a negative out front, we reflect this graph about the x-axis, and we now have a graph that looks like this. That again, most useful to us in this course, at least when we're asked to do limits. So the next question will be something similar, but we'll be asked to do a limit and something we don't have a graph sitting there.